Yo guys, welcome back. Today we're going to cover trigger mods, but we're going to be covering one trigger mod in particular. This mod is Power Beyond. It was brought to my attention on stream, some of the things going on with this mod, so we went and tested it out. We'll run those same tests here in the video, and I will also revisit the Nell build for the Bussy Dangler, aka Storm Hanger, with a couple of changes to that. This is all being done live on Twitch. Link is in the description. We're in the middle of a subathon. There's Twitch drops, an exclusive Twitch chat badge for subbing and gifting. Feel free to come hang out, ask any questions that you have. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So first, let's take a look at this trigger mod, Power Beyond, and we're gonna read it together. Using a global dot or a ground dot type skill grants void recharge. Hitting an enemy while void recharge is at max stacks with a global dot or ground dot skill. Creates an amorphous phenomenon under the enemy's feet for 10 seconds. Removes all void recharge stacks. The amorphous phenomenon briefly inflicts tow on enemies in range and reduces their attack by a percentage of the skill range boost ratio. So we see all that down here, void recharge, amorphous phenomenon, and we see all that in the text for the mod. The one thing we don't see here is the basic info, skill power increase. Well, it turns out that this takes nothing to be triggered, and it also doesn't matter which skill you have this linked to. So for Power Beyond, I have it slotted in here because of my second ability. Now let's go to the lab. Firstly, we will look at our base skill power boost ratio, being that this is what's being affected. So right now we are at a 0.19 times. I will simply cast my first ability, and now we are at a 0.196 times. So I did not use my second ability. I used my first ability, which this is not linked to. So it seems to be that the way this is working, as long as you have it slotted, you will get the base skill power boost ratio. But on top of that, it stays and it never goes down. As you can see, we still have it. We'll come back to the same screen and we still have it. So let's bring up Inez. We'll go through a couple of Descendants here. She can slot Power Beyond, but with her fourth ability, same mod, we're doing the same thing here. Let's check her base. Her base is a 0.13 times. Okay, so it's linked to her fourth ability, supposedly, but I'm simply going to use her second ability. And now you can see we're at a 0.36 times. So now the real kicker here is that I have this on Bunny. If we look at Bunny, this is not linked to any of Bunny's skills. We can see that when we scroll through the mods. We can also see that here because if it was, it would be in gold, and these are all in white. So let's look at Bunny's base skill power boost ratio, 0.78 times. Well, now it doesn't matter what skill I use, right? Because it's not linked to any of them. And now we're at 0.786 times. So let's do a little bit of an in-game test here in the lab. I'm removing anything that's going to add to my skill power at any moment so I can get a nice base number. So I've removed all of my external components. As far as my arcade tuning, I've just completely selected an empty build here. My inversion reinforcement is completely reset, and I don't have a secret garden on. I just have a last dagger in my hand. So we're going to hit the boss, and we're going to see what we get. 251, 251, 251, 251. So now we'll slot in Power Beyond. Unfortunately, I do not have a 15% one yet. I will be grinding to fucking get that. We have the 13%. We'll slot that in, and we'll do the same thing. Everything's empty still. All the same. Last dagger. So we're going from a 251,000 to a 283,000 for simply just existing. So why am I comparing this mod to Serena? Well, when you look at the other trigger modules, most of them, like a trigger module should, you have to do something to trigger it. It has a duration, certain amount of uptime, and most of them are not really that strong. RK Leak is going to be great for MP, but there's nothing really here that's going to compare to Power Beyond. If you have this at the 15% skill power increase, which is boosting your base power, you're looking at a 10 to 12% damage increase in total. And there's nothing here that's going to compare to that. A lot of these are very niche for certain situations. Like I said, RK Leak for your MP. Something like Kuiper Hollow Points, which is situational for a time where you just can't hit weak points, or weak points are very hard to hit. You have something like Death by 1,000 Cuts, where you have to do a certain amount of things to trigger it. It has a cooldown, and it just does 1 hit of splash damage. And when you compare this to this and the damage increase that you're getting from it, and you just use 1 ability pretty much on any skill Descendant in the game, and it's just up the whole time, nothing here comes close to that. So that's why I'm saying this is the Serena of the trigger modules. So what do I think is going on here? Number one, the fact that you can use this on pretty much any Descendant, even if it isn't linked to an ability, and then still proc it by using a skill. To me, that would seem like it would be a bug of some sort. That's first of all. The second thing, I'm not sure if the skill power just being there is the bug, because if you read the description of the mod, it doesn't even mention the skill power and how you proc it, but you do proc it by actually using an ability. It turns out that you can proc it with any ability, not just the ability that it's linked to. You know, I'm not a developer. Is something that they probably should look into, though, because this is pretty game changing. I kept saying when people asked me about the trigger mods that none of them were really game changing or meta defining. Well, turns out this is very game changing and very meta defining, and there's just a lot of things going on here that don't make sense. So I quickly just want to give an update, like I said, about the Nell Storm Hanger build. Basically, we've put in Power Beyond, obviously, for our trigger module. As far as the mods, I have changed nothing else. There's some really fast runs on the leaderboard right now. So she's doing very well in there. And I was also able to play with a Luna earlier. So I set up a bit of a build for playing with Luna. And this is what that looks like. Dangerous Ambush, because this was a group of 4 and aggro was not on me, and he's also downed from all the damage so much that I went with Dangerous Ambush here. We're able to take out Skill Insight now and put non-attributes in sight to him. And I've also removed Strong Mentality for Spear and Shield because of Luna giving you the MP, and the fight is so quick. I think we did a 29-second 4-man, 2 Nells, a Luna, and a Keelan, and we weren't really min-maxing any of our debuffs either. Other than that, nothing else has changed on the build. Cooldown Colossus, your Enlightened Mage set. I do have a Sieve Scan increase modifier and a Sieve Scan display time. I'm not really sure how that affects her actual mark on the target, something we'll have to test at some point. And my RK tuning is a little different here because I was running with a group, so I put in defense neutralization. But if you're going to do this, you got to make sure you're going to be the first one hitting the enemy with a skill before anyone else. So if not, just go back to using final preparations. And that covers everything, hopefully giving everyone some insight what trigger mod they should be using. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comments. I'm live on Twitch, like I said. Feel free to join my Discord. The link to that is also in the description. Great place when you are looking for some of my build updates, like any changes I made to Serena's Wall Crasher build. That's it. Thanks, guys. Peace.